Good morning. Boker Tov. It's about all I know in Hebrew, sorry. When I was 12 years old, I got kicked out of Hebrew school in the U.S. for not paying attention enough. So, my name is Ron Litman. I'm a pediatric anesthesiologist from Philadelphia. And in a moment, I will tell you about the Institute for Safe Medication Practice, how we got started, and our main way of collecting data, which is case reports. And thank you so much for having me. This is a real honor, a privilege to come to Israel and to be a representative of the Institute for Safe Medication Practice. So, there we go. Okay, good. Thank you. So, down here is my email, and as Irene said before, later on today, at the end of the day, I will be chairing a panel with some medication safety experts. So please do not hesitate to email me if you have any questions that you want us to discuss later on. Also, if you like to do Twitter, there's my Twitter, whatever you call it, address. And I can take requests that way too. So a little bit about me first to tell you how I got into all this and to frame the references. I was a pediatrician first. I did a pediatric residency, and one of the things this was back in the late 80s, and one of the things I noticed was how awful it was when children needed painful procedures. There was no really safe way of sedating them or anesthetizing them. And I'll never forget one of my first months as a pediatric intern when a child came in who had suspected leukemia, how I was one of the people to hold her down while the oncologist did the bone marrow. And it really made a big impression on me, and I said, there's got to be a better way. So I then, after my pediatric residency, became an anesthesiology resident at Mount Sinai in New York with Dr. Hirschman. And now I practice at this, I'm very lucky, at this beautiful children's hospital in Philadelphia, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, one of the biggest in the United States, in the world. Where is Philadelphia, for anybody who doesn't know? It's right here. We're just below south of New York City. So in about 1999-2000, I was asked to investigate why this little boy, Justin, died suddenly in the operating room for no apparent reason. And I got to know his family when I investigated the case for the hospital in New York State. And I don't have enough time today to really go over all the details, but what happened was that the anesthesiologist meant to give Justin this drug called Zofran, ondansetron, which prevents nausea and vomiting after surgery, but instead reached in his cart for this drug, phenylephrine. And those of you who know anything about the kinds of drugs that we give in the ICU or in anesthesia, this little vial of phenylephrine we have to dilute twice. So it's actually 100 times the adult dose. So when the anesthesiologist reached inside the drug cart and gave Justin the phenylephrine instead of the ondansetron, it was a fatal event. And that's what started my career the last 20 years or so into medication safety, trying to figure out ways that we can prevent. So one of the really nice things about being on faculty at the University of Pennsylvania is that we get to take any course we want for free. So I was taking undergraduate courses, and then I came upon a course at the law school. And again, too long a story for today, but I ended up getting a master's in law, and part of that master's was a concentration in regulatory law, so I could try and figure out how to make drug administration in the U.S. safer using regulatory avenues like laws or regulations from certain agencies. It turns out that there really are no laws in the United States that regulate drug administration. Well, that in turn led me to the ISMP. So again, luckily for me, the Institute for Safe Medication Practice is located in Philadelphia, and it was started by this really remarkable guy named Mike Cohen. And when I went up there as part of a term paper I was doing for a regulatory law class, I got to meet Mike and the staff of ISMP. And again, luck plays a big role. Their medical director, who had just become a great-grandfather, wanted to retire, and they were looking for his replacement. So I got to know the staff there, and they offered me the job. And of course, that was which led me to here. So as part of all this, I became the head of the chair of an advisory committee at the FDA. My particular advisory committee is what's called ADPAC, which stands for AADPAC, the Anesthesia and Analgesia Drug Product Advisory Committee, which for all intents and purposes is opioids. So opioids is a really crucially hot topic now in the United States, so we have our work cut out for us in the next couple of years. Anyway, here's a disclaimer, which all of my employers require me to tell you, that anything I tell you here today has nothing to do with what they might think, and I'm not a representative of the U.S. government, even though I work for them sometimes, or ISMP. But I really am here on behalf of ISMP. So Mike Cohen, when he first created this nonprofit, one of the most important avenues for medication reporting was this, I don't know if you could see down here, this area on the website where they can report an error. And this is how ISMP gathers most of its data. Now, there's no way I could stand here today or tomorrow or how many conferences and tell you all the amazing things that Mike has set up with ISMP to do. He has a staff of about 40 people in the office, and it's really remarkable. But I'm just going to concentrate on the error reporting mechanism because I think that's where we've made the most impact in patient safety in the US and throughout the world. So what happens is that you can go to our website, which is ismp.org, and I hope you will all visit it after today. And there are 3 ways that you can report a medication error, and it can be any kind of error. The first way is for healthcare practitioners. That's the National Medication Errors Reporting Program. The second way is by consumers. Anybody, any patient who's made a mistake taking a drug can report it. And you can either leave your name or it can be anonymous, either way. And then finally, the third way is the National Vaccine Errors Reporting Program. You know we have this big problem in the US right now where some crazy fanatic people think that vaccines are a government conspiracy to harm people and so forth. And it's been a very difficult path to get everyone to take their vaccines. And that's why we have outbreaks of measles and so forth in the United States right now. So the process is very simple. We receive reports. Those reports are analyzed and investigated. So if by chance they are not anonymous and the reporter leaves their contact information, then we have investigators at ISMP. We have many interns. We have some from the FDA, from all different places, who then go and investigate the root cause. It's not a formal root cause analysis, as many of you know, but they try their best to investigate the cause of the accident or the error. The ones that are anonymous and that we can't investigate, we just go on what information has been given us. The next part is really important, and that's the information part. How do we inform the community about these errors so that people can take steps to prevent them? So the most important way that ISMP does that is by dissemination of newsletters. They have 5 newsletters. They each go to different types of practitioners throughout the world. And believe it or not, these newsletters reach millions of people. They come out by email notices, and then you log into the website if you have a subscription. But they reach millions of people. And this is the way that people can be informed of the kinds of medication errors that are out there and then can do something about it. Now, we understand that even if you read one of our errors, you may not be empowered to do your own investigation and change the way the medications are packaged or whatever the root cause of the medication error is. So we are very active in doing that. ISMP has very close ties to FDA and the pharmaceutical industry so that when we put out these alerts, we can work with them to change. And I'll give you some examples. Oh, one other thing. There's another way that we can alert people for really crucial flaws in the way medications are practiced, and that's called the National Alert Network. And these are emergency bulletins that ISMP puts out that reach incredibly high number of people very critically and soon. These only come out a couple times a year. So we work with the FDA, with an organization called ECRI. Those are medical device experts, also located near Philadelphia in the U.S. They're a medication device testing company, and they also put out the same kinds of reports that we do. Pennsylvania Patient Safety Authority is one of the most advanced in the U.S., and they also come out with bulletins that have a large reach, and the National Coordinating Council for Medication Error Reporting and Prevention. So any time that we get notice of an error that needs to be fixed, that can somehow be changed by the pharmaceutical company, all these organizations are alerted, and they in turn alert their constituents. Okay, what are some examples? Now, there's too many to tell you. I mean, there's hundreds or even thousands. But I just brought along today, in the short period of time that I have to talk to you, some examples from ISMP. So here's a good example of what would, this is a generic acetaminophen or paracetamol, and this is a misleading label. So you could see here that this dose, which is a pretty typical adult dose of 500 milligrams, but they provide you a cup, and the cup has this marker at the 30 milliliter level, but that's actually 2 doses. So the way this was packaged, many people feel that they should take where the marker occurs, but you can overdose on acetaminophen that way. So this was put out, and ISMP went back to the company, and they changed it so that the label now only is, the marker is different. Here's a couple other examples. Over here is a lookalike vials. Just like I told you the story with Justin before, this can happen. These vials look very similar. One is bupivacaine, which is a long-acting local anesthesia, and the other is pantoprazole for stomach acid. And so you can imagine that this one's intravenous, but bupivacaine is meant to be given locally, right, on the nerves, epidurally or spinally. But if you give it intravenously, it can stop the heart. So the ISMP went back to the company, and they changed the labeling. This is one of my favorite stories. This was we got notice of some morphines, and this is a little morphine vial, and this cap pops off, and that's how you know if the morphine has been used. But what was happening is that somewhere between the distribution, the pharmacy, and the hospital ward, someone was getting a hold of the morphine, popping the cap off, taking it out, and then gluing it back on and putting water back in there. And so if you look closely here, you could see the glue residue. And so this was, there was nothing to do about this at the factory level, the manufacturer, but this was just another example of how when people get narcotics and opioids, to look and make sure that they haven't been tampered with. Listen, people will find a way, right? Where there's a will, there's a way. This is an example of something that came through our consumer branch of ISMP, where earwax removal drops came in a bottle that looked like eye drops. So people were putting the earwax removal in their eyes. This is even worse. This is an example of a little tiny plastic piece that when people were using their contact solution, the plastic piece fell off the dispenser and was getting lodged in people's eyes. And this was many injuries from this. And Mike Cohen actually went and testified at the FDA to get them to force the company to make the product different. Well, we deal with common problems like drug mix-ups, where we go back to either the FDA or the companies, and we say, please, we've had so many instances where your names have been mixed up and people are taking the wrong drug. Can you do anything to change it? And in many instances they do, but of course in some instances they don't. More just examples of the companies making different drugs, but they look exactly the same. So they could be either dose differences or different versions of the same drug. But when the companies package them so that they look almost the same, then consumers can't tell the difference. So one of our roles is to go back to the pharmaceutical manufacturer and point out to them how difficult it is for consumers or even healthcare professionals to take their drugs. Here's one that affects us in anesthesia. This is a company called Nephron. And one of the things in anesthesia that we like are our medicines come with different labels that are different colors. And each class of drugs is a different color. So for example, opioids are blue. In this instance, this is a drug called phenylephrine. That's a vasopressor, and those are purple or lavender. This one's succinylcholine. This is a neuromuscular blocker. All our neuromuscular blockers are red or orange. And so this company, Nephron, said, okay, we're going to do it perfectly well. We're going to give you these beautiful labels, but when you turn them around, they all look the same over here. So we went back to the company and we pointed out how people, if they didn't put the syringe right down with the label facing up, hello? Then we went back and we asked them to fix the label, and that's exactly what happened. And now the labels are circumferentially the same color no matter where you put them. Of course, we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The reports that we get are only a very small example of the actual errors that are going on out there. So we try our best to alert the community and work with pharmacy and the manufacturers and work with the FDA to make sure that any time this happens, it gets fixed pretty quickly. And you know, thank you. I wasn't strong enough to do it myself. Thank you. So no matter what, we get reports of these every day. You would think that manufacturers by now would be able to anticipate the kinds of errors and problems that we would have in packaging or the way that they supply medicines. But it's just remarkable how every single day we get more and more reports. So, just to brag a little bit about all the accomplishments of ISMP that resulted from these kinds of reporting systems, these were some of the concepts that ISMP really were the pioneers in introducing. One of the most important ones is the tall man lettering, so that people won't accidentally pick up the wrong drug. Error-prone abbreviations to avoid. We have all kinds of other programs called action agendas, these quarter watch newsletters that are sent out. The FMEA, which is the failure mode and effects analysis. So I don't know if you're not familiar, it's too complicated to get into it today, but it's when a medication error occurs, you can go back and do this FMEA and look at all the steps in the process between producing a medication in the hospital and giving it to the patient and looking at all the steps where an error could occur. Need for free flow protection from infusion pumps, and of course the independent double check. And still today, when I work in the operating room every day, we do not have an independent double check. And it's because we just haven't evolved to that point of technology where we can do that easily without interruption of our workflow. Here's some examples that ISMP has been really instrumental in changing. I mean, I'm not going to read all these down, but you can see these. But there are many, and these are just some examples from our website. Oh, sorry. All right. So, have we made progress? Well, we think we have. We can. This is as it lists just a partial list. There are many areas where we have actually changed practice based on these medication reporting systems. And one of the most important ones that's we're having a technological revolution in the United States now is with barcoding. Right now in most hospitals, you can never say all, every time a nurse on a hospital ward goes to give a medication, they have to scan the barcode of the syringe, and that barcode is connected to what we call the EMR, the electronic medical record, and that really makes sure that you're giving it to the right patient, the right medicine, the right dose, and the right time. In the operating room where I work, we do not have barcode scanning yet. And it's a very chaotic environment sometimes. You know, most operations are simple and they're smooth, but what if something emergent would happen and I have to reach for a drug very quickly, but I don't have a barcode scanner to make sure that it's the right drug that I'm giving? And medication errors are very prevalent in the operating room. In my hospital this summer, we are starting to introduce barcoding, and that's, we hope that it will be incorporated into our workflow, And it will be clumsy, it will be awkward at first, because it's not what we're used to doing, but eventually we're hoping that it will catch on. And there are many other examples of very similar types of technological advances that we have created that's come out of error reporting from ISMP. One of the most important things is that we are classified as a PSO, which is a patient safety organization, which means that we have federal protections against lawsuits or discovery of original reports, so that people who call in or mail in their errors can be protected against some type of liability. So again, that's my email. If you have any questions, we can please email me or message me by Twitter, and we will get to all your questions later this afternoon. And I know that this is just really a very small example of the kinds of things that ISMP does, but I just wanted to give you a sample of just the reporting here today. So I look forward to meeting you all later today and talking tomorrow about our self-assessment procedures. Thank you.